Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Worldhoppers, our collaborative channel where we talk all bookish things, lots of fantasy, and all of the merch sales and the advertising revenue goes to charity. And we are here to talk about some Michael J. Sullivan, some World of Elon, really. I know he has written those couple other things. The Hollow World, right? Is that what it's called?
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's like another series, but I think it's like a more sci-fi thing. And
Really?
it's not
I
in
should
like
look that up. I'm just so
yeah,
obsessed
look it up.
with the Elon world stuff.
Yeah.
I can't even
Yeah,
explore
check it
the
out.
other
I don't know if
stuff.
it's a completed series or anything either, because I've never like paid that much attention to it either. I'm not sure. Or if maybe graphic novels or something. I don't know.
Okay, I gotta look this up now.
I'm very well versed with the world of Elon, but not
Yes.
so much with anything else. But yeah, we all have delved into the world of Elon, his multiple series, and just a preface, I guess, for anyone who doesn't know. We are going to try to be, we're going to be non-spoilery and even for each other, because some of us, like, we've read different things. Not everyone has read all the available things. So I'm going to try to, like, not spoil it for each other either. And certainly not for you guys. But yeah, so the world of Elon, the chronological order of these books is the Legends of the First Empire series, which is 6 books, and then the trilogy that is currently being published, The Rise and Fall, comes next chronologically, like in the timeline, and then Rhaeria Chronicles, and then Rhaeria Revelations. Publication order would be Rhaeria Revelations, then Chronicles, which is like prequel to Revelations, and then going back thousands and thousands of years to Legends, and then now this current one, which book 3 is coming out this summer. Yay. Very exciting. So let me get my little prompts here we all know, but what have we read from his works? I have read I read Legends first. So I've read the whole Legends of the First Empire series, and then Rhaeria Revelations trilogy, or whatever you want to call it, because it's really 6 books, but each one is a bind. Shut up. Each one is a bind up, so like it's 3 technically now. And then I read the first 2 of the Rise and Fall. I just haven't read Chronicles yet. So that's where I'm at. How about you, Roger?
I've read all of the Legends of the First Empire, and I've read the first 2 books in the Rise and Fall. I am being the true rebel and reading things completely in world chronological order.
Yes.
So I haven't touched anything Rhaeria, Royce, and Hadrian, none of that. Only
very interested to see how like you're gonna feel about it all once you get done.
Yeah. And then I've read, so it was weird, my order of things. I read Theft of Swords first, which is the first 2 books in Rhaeria Revelations. And then I went and read the entire Legends of the First Empire. And then I went back and finished out Rhaeria Revelations. So I've done Revelations and Legends. So I still need to do all the in-between stuff.
Yeah. And that kind of answers the second one too. Like, what order are we reading it in? I guess I'm reading it in, like, I don't even know what order, because I did Revelations and then Legends and now Rise and Fall, and then I'm gonna go to Chronicles. Like, I'm just making up my own thing at this point. I think I didn't realize
none of us are doing pub order.
Yeah, I didn't realize like what the like timeline was. I don't think when I just read Legends of the First Empire and like loved it, and then was like, oh, there's all these other things. So that's where I ended up. Are you gonna read, Jesse? Are you gonna read Rise and Fall before you go to read Chronicles? Also, though,
yes, just because I think I'm like more excited to read Rise and Fall, because I think tone wise that matches Legends more than it matches Revelations, and so I
Nolan probably does.
Legends.
Yeah, Nolan,
I don't know.
For sure.
I think maybe Fairlane is probably leaning closer because it's much smaller in scope.
That's true, and then Ezra Haddon,
humorous-y.
That's true, and then the third book probably ties into
Ezra Haddon, though, might be like kind of more epic, though, depending on what he's covering. What I think he's covering, it'll be kind of epic. But I do think, I feel like the biggest difference for me in like the tone is like the scope of what's going on in the world. Because like in Revelations, it's like big stuff is still going on in the world, like big stuff. But like it feels different because there are a cast of characters, but you're really following Royce and Hadrian, whereas in Legends, you're following like 6 main characters, basically.
Yes.
So it makes it feel like more epic fantasy-ish to me, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah, I get this
in my mind, like the buddy cop duo. Obviously, I haven't read Rhaeria, so this is all talking out of my back end. But like in my mind, when you have that buddy cop duo, even if it's like similar stakes, it always feels kind of like more fish out of water, where they're like this, like they were used to dealing with smaller stuff and then get thrust into bigger events. Whereas Legends, you're kind of following the people that are the movers and the shakers of the world in the first place.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, it's I'm so curious to see how you're gonna feel about like the comparison between them once you get done with the end. And do you guys have an opinion on what order? Again, none of us have like fully completed all of them at this point. But like what order?
I feel like you could probably, because I mean, I feel like Chronicles can't be that epic. It's just kind of how they met. Right, and some like early adventures.
There's gotta be though with how Michael J. Sullivan is. There's gotta be like Easter eggs galore and like setting things up. Like there has to be, because even though it is like a prequel of just how Royce and Hadrian met and like some of their adventures before Revelations. I'm like it's I don't know what.
There's still probably some more like
there has to be.
Yeah,
I think I don't know, because like Revelations, I ended up not loving that series overall. I think I went from like 4.5 stars for the first one to like 3.75 or something for the second one, and then like 3.25 or 3.5 for the third one. And it was like a lot of the pacing I wasn't loving or something like that. But I'm like, I don't know if it would have been better to have read it first or not. I don't know. Because like obviously I'm reading it with like that comparison. It did make it really fun though, reading with the Easter eggs. I think that's like why I don't know if I do think there is like a best reading order, just because I think no matter what order you do it in, either way, you're going to get like Easter eggs or like information of like, oh, I know who that is, or that event that you're talking about. That's not how it happened or whatever. Or like, I think it is more fun doing it that way, honestly, to me. I think reading Legends first and then reading the other stuff, because that's the thing is like in Revelations, if you read that first, you're like, these are the facts of the world. And then you go back to read Legends, you're going to be like, wait, I don't think that's what they said. Because like the history of it all changed. So I feel like it's more fun to like know the history first and then see how it all changed over time. And like pick up on that. I feel like it's easier and like more fun to pick up on that. But
it was super fun doing it that way. The one thing I will say is I think after reading Revelations, after Legends, I think if you really want like the full experience for Revelations by itself, I think you have to read that one first, because Heir of Novrin, the third and final bind up, and what everything leads to, if you've read Legends, it's very predictable. Like you kind of know
it is.
What the twists and the reveals are going to be. Whereas if you didn't know any of that, it would have been like, oh my God, what? Like I could have seen myself being like, what? But I was like, well, it's kind of obvious what's gonna happen.
We have insider information.
A
lot of it.
So I will say that for that reason, Revelations might be better to start with, but I did enjoy seeing everything they got wrong and changed, and it was really fun kind of being like,
no, Revelations first. I agree. I think you're right that like it definitely, I think that's also part of why like the pacing was a little off for me, and then I didn't have that of like, oh my gosh, because I was like, I already know. Like, from book one, I kind of knew like where this was going, at least with some major things. So I think if you read Revelations first and then go read Legends, I think it's like you have to then go reread Revelations to like get all those, oh my gosh, that's right, they said this, and like that's not how it was or whatever, because you're not going to remember those things. I feel like if you read Revelations first and then you go read Legends, you're not going to remember like the history facts that they got wrong later.
Right.
I don't know. It's very fun, no matter how you do it, I
It
feel.
is. He made it so that you could have fun no matter what.
Yeah.
I think the weird thing would be, I don't think that you should start with Rise and Fall. And I'm assuming you probably also shouldn't start with Chronicles. I figure like most people, you would either start with Legends or Revelations. Because Rise and Fall would be really disorienting without having read Legends first, because you're like,
yeah, you can
kind of
like you can read. He doesn't spoil anything, but it's like, it wouldn't. You'd be kind of like, what is happening? And no frame of reference. It's not like you'd have spoilers for things, but you just wouldn't have a frame of reference for the world, really. Because I think the Rise and Fall doesn't explain the world as well, I guess.
Okay.
So
really not at all, because you're kind of just thrown into it and you're expected to like know, because they just reference people from Legends. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It's got to be one of those two. You got to start with one of those two, Legends.
I'd say if you just want to dabble, I would say it depends on more what you're interested in, because I'm assuming that with the buddy cop dynamic, it's more of his humorous side, where Legends doesn't have as much of that. I know, like, the only person I've ever heard complain about his humor is Al, but
I know. I don't remember a lot of humor in.
I don't either.
But I will say Revelations starts off with a much lighter tone, and it kind of starts off with that more humorous tone. But by the end, I do think it gets to a point where the stakes are so high that it feels a little bit more in line with the tone of Legends, where it's more epic.
Well, because it starts off with like, oh, here's a little mission for you guys to go steal a thing.
Right.
Have fun, another job for you. Whereas Legends starts off with like, we've killed a god. What do we do now? Like, it's like way more high stakes for the people in the world, like right off the bat. But Revelations like builds up.
Yeah, and there's like,
just that setup is not my favorite. Like when you tell me like thiefy, heisty stuff, those are kind of anti-buzzwords for me, which is why it was so easy to convince me to start with Legends, because I don't really like thiefy stuff.
It doesn't stay that way
very long.
Yeah.
So
there is some silly stuff though it's the first book, right?
Yeah,
with the tower,
the first bind up
or whatever.
I think like it's the second book in the first bind up.
Yeah.
Gets into like some pretty silly stuff, but
silly plot thing where you're like, well, okay, sure.
But by the end, he does that same thing he does in Legends, where there's the emotional gut punches. He gets you. So it's good.
100%. I want to reread Revelations. I really do, because I don't know. I'm like, maybe I didn't give it.
I really liked the ending, but again, I think I'm with you that it kind of spoiled it a little bit with the ending, knowing what was coming.
All right, I'm gonna put the next prompt up, and my groceries just got delivered a minute ago, so I'm gonna mute myself. You guys chat. I'll be RV. So sorry.
Oh, what doesn't he do well? Go ahead, Roger. You can start.
I think my favorite things about him in particular has been kind of being able to see the original story and see how it gets twisted over time. And so like for me, I think it's been more fun because in the Rise and Fall, you get to see how it got twisted and by whom. And so you start to pick out, you're like, oh, you're shady. Like I see you. And then I'll be curious to see how much more it gets twisted, because then Nolan is only like a couple hundred years after Legends, and then Fairlane is 1,000 years after Nolan. And so even just between those three times periods, you can already see that weird things are happening.
Interesting.
And I think that he does a very good balance of kind of fun, classic adventure fantasy, which is like my bread and butter, like Dragonlance, Dungeons and Dragons, all that kind of stuff. But he does it in a way where he also has the character moments that make you feel things. Because like that's probably the biggest complaint I would say rereading some of those old favorites is like they don't have the emotion, like gut punching, nothing. You're kind of like, it's just fun. And he does a good blend of both. And I think you almost get sucker punched because you're just like, oh, this is so much fun. And you're like, no, he can't possibly. Oh, okay, we're going there.
Yeah, and then he does it, and you're like, no, you can't. How could you?
And then you start coming up with like those hypotheses of like, well, maybe it's not real. And you're like, no, it might be.
Right. Yeah.
But that would be the things that I think he does the best. Is it's a unique take on having this kind of sprawling, epic, advanced series, because there's like the Cosmere where things are interconnected, but then you have beings that are living for thousands of years, where in this case, they do, but they don't live long enough to live the whole span for most of the characters. Right. So you get to see those different time periods and how it's all been changed.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with everything you just said.
Sorry.
I was really profound and you missed it.
Oh, dang it. I'm sorry.
I will say that after reading Legends, he writes women extremely well.
Right?
I love his women characters in Legends. And Revelations shows that, you know, he can write men too, like, very well. But the women characters, I think, take the spotlight in the Legends series, and each one of them is so different, and they all have very much like both strengths and weaknesses, but it's all different strengths and different weaknesses. So he writes such a variety of women that are all strong in their own way, and I loved that. He did it so well. He made each one feel so individual and unique. So I love his characters in general, but his women were like amazing. So I know his wife is involved in reading his books and helping him and signs off on all of them. So maybe that has something to do with it. But I was like, oh my gosh, these women have my whole heart. I love them.
Yeah, I love that too. Like, yeah, because it's like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of times it can be easy, I feel, to like write the like strong warrior chick kind of thing in fantasy. And I mean, we have that too in Legends. Like there's the strong warrior fighter chick that, you know, can kill you with a bow and arrow from, you know, across the field or whatever. But like, yeah, then there's other women who are strong because they're wise and intelligent and clever, or strong because they're compassionate and kind, or just really, really smart with specific things or whatever. Outspoken, quiet, but like resilient, just like human beings, you know, just people. And of a variety, like you said. I agree. Just as characters in general, like, because like I always say with Legends, and like I feel like I'm always like, I don't want it to sound like an insult, but the world and like whatever as far as fantasy goes, it's like a pretty standard fantasy world with like your standard fantasy races of creatures and stuff. It's not anything earth-shattering in that regard. So if someone like loves these crazy, unique, you know, imaginative worlds, they probably won't love World of Elon a heck of a lot. But it's like, I do like that stuff sometimes for sure, but I don't need it if I have characters that I'm just like, I'm rooting for you. And the way I root for them. It's so funny because I reread Legends, the first 4 books, and then the last 2 I've only read once, I think, or maybe the last 3. I don't know. 2 or 3, the last ones I've only read once. But even like rereading it, it's like I know what's gonna happen, but I was still like, nah, my babies, whenever they were like in peril or whatever. I'm like, Deshauna, you know how this is gonna play out, but I still just get so attached. And
I think that's one of the things that he does well, is that he does it in a relatively short amount of time. Because none of the books are super long. It's not like you're reading 800-page chonkers. They're all like 300 to 450 pages, somewhere in there. Except for the bind-ups, I'm sure a little bit longer, but that's because they're 2 books.
I very much appreciate a nice, to the point series.
Get right to it, man. Yeah, he does. He does that really well, I think. And then the emotional gut punches, like, because it's not like overly flowery writing by any means. It's pretty straightforward, like sentence structure and like, you know, choice of language, use of language.
Every once in a while he'll sprinkle in a nice little metaphor, but
yeah, exactly. It's like here and there. It's not like super like dry or anything, but it's just like kind of regular, I guess, the writing style, and like it's like normal. I don't know. And then he just hits you with these moments where I'm like, oh God, why did you have to do it? I feel like it's because he gets so like succinct with it, you know. And then he does the lingering thing, where like a chapter later, he like refers back to the devastating thing that just happened, and it's like in such a quiet way. It's like a character saying like a word that you're like, oh god, why'd you have to write that? Like just devastates me all over again. I swear to God, the word always, is that what it is? Or no, even now. I'm like, oh, shut up. Anytime anyone says that throughout the whole series, I'm just like, I hate you. Why are you making me? Why are you making me do this? Or the wisest wolf. I did top 10 animal companions, and I talked about Minna, and I was like legit getting emotional saying like the wisest wolf. Like I need to stop. It's so stupid, but he makes you care, you know?
He does.
Makes you care about him. Okay, do you guys have a favorite book so far that you have read?
Age of War.
Age of War. Same.
I would say Age of War, or for me, Age of Death, I think.
Yeah, I remember you really liked that one with all
I was surprised that I liked it because I was like, oh, what we're doing. I don't want to spoil, but like what the premise was, what the setup was at the end of the book before it, I was kind of like, okay, sure. But then, yeah, I really, really like that. But Age of War just
Age of Death is almost bottom with me with Age of Swords.
See, and I love Age of Swords.
I like the second half of Age of Swords. The first half, absolutely not.
Yeah, it was the end of Age of Swords. I'll never forget it. Oh my god, I was bawling. So
it was a pretty.
5 stars. Yeah,
it made me sob my eyes out. 5 stars.
Yeah, exactly. But no, Age of War, I think, and it's funny because I thought Age of Empire, being the 6th and final book in Legends, would end up being my favorite. But the way he wrote Legends, you both know this, but I'll say it for the crowd. He wrote it in kind of 2 separate story arcs. So Age of War kind of concludes the first story arc, and then there's a little bit of a time jump, and then you go to the next 3 books in Legends, and they're all connected. They're definitely a series, but you have kind of 2 separate conclusions, if you will. And that Age of War conclusion was just so powerful. Like that, the character moments and just the battle conflict and all of that was just so epic. Even more than Age of Empire somehow. So I just loved it.
Yeah.
That one also had like that looming sense of dread because you kind of know what's coming and you're like, no.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't.
Yeah, the big thing. Yeah, the conversation happening about it and like those characters talking, you're like, I know.
No, something's gonna happen to like not let that happen.
And then it sure did. And then Gifford's ride.
Oh my god. Just so many like epic like cheering out loud moments. Yeah.
So Gifford for me was kind of like I don't know. When I was reading him, because I listened to a lot of it on audiobook, and so there are times where I was like, is this okay? Because like
the speech impediment, I could see that. I could see that.
So there were times where I was like,
yeah,
and like sometimes I felt like he was supposed to be like comedic relief, at least the way it was in the audiobooks, and so sometimes I was like,
see, in the book, I never got that. Like in the book, the dialogue, it's clear that he has like a speech impediment in the dialogue in the book. But I never got the vibe that he was like supposed to be like funny or like to be laughed at or whatever. Unless
that's interesting with the audio experience.
It was better than the graphic audio. It was not as well in the like regular audio. In the graphic audio, it was better, but in the like regular audiobook, there were times where I was like,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I know that moment. Even when I reread like Age of War, that like was another moment that like again I know what's gonna happen. I read it already, but where I still was getting like so hyped up and like emotional, like oh my god.
Yes.
I know how this is gonna end, but I'm still just like so hyped.
You said Age of War or Age of Death is your favorite. That's right.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I'm just surprised the Age of Death hit for you so hard.
I know it was just again the moments like I just remember reading that and like that is one I need to reread though I think, but I just remember reading it and just having so many like oh my God, like, what? Moments and just like my heart stopping for a second.
Because for me, like the first three are very memorable. Like I remember quite a bit about all three of them, but the second three, for whatever reason, haven't stuck with me quite as much.
Interesting. I will say, if you are planning on reading Legends, have the 5th and 6th book on hand, because the 4th and 5th books leave off on the most god-awful cliffhangers I've ever read in my entire life.
Yeah.
But that's part of why I have a harder time distinguishing what happened in which book, because they kind of are just like...
They blend. Yeah, it's just like literally cliffhanger.
Yes. It's kind of just like one continuous story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Okay, well, you guys both said Age of Swords. Oh, no, you like...
No, I said Age of Swords. She didn't say.
You said Age of Swords.
Oh, my least favorite is in Revelations.
Yeah.
But I don't remember exactly which one. Probably the second bind-up in Revelations is my least favorite, because it just kind of felt very middle book syndrome-y. It was a lot of build-up, a lot of placing people where they needed to be. And then I think that was the one where they had to go on the ship. And I was like, we got to do some seafaring adventure. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I think it was that one. And I didn't like that either.
So I think that was my least favorite. But I really like the first and third bind-up of Revelations.
I rated Heir of Novaron the lowest. But when I think about it in retrospect, that might have just been because I was like getting kind of tired of like the pacing and like, I don't know. Yeah. And like, again, the predictability, because I kind of could see where it was going. So it wasn't as like exciting. Because then when I am thinking about it, the middle book, I'm like, what even happened? What did we do?
I like don't remember. Like I remember Heir of Novaron, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, but then when I think about that too, I'm like, what I really remember is like the end. I really...
Yeah, that's true.
Just the one thing at the end that I don't want to say. But yeah, because I'm like, I don't really... So one of those two would be my least favorite. And from Legends, I would say Age of Swords for sure. I think it was my least favorite.
I think my least favorite was Age of Myth, because it was just kind of the one that, you know, it took a while to like get into it. And then when I was into it, I was like really into it. But I was like, that was the only 4.5 star. All the rest were 5.
Interesting, because I loved Age of Myth. I loved getting to know the characters.
Oh, I loved it by the end. Trust me. But I remember being like not totally sold until about like halfway through, and then I was like,
I think when you read those for that like project of like reading books, and you initially liked Theft of Swords better, didn't you? I feel like you did.
Yes.
You rated Theft of Swords higher, and I was like, dang it, I didn't win. But then you went on to like binge Legends, and I'm like, I won.
You totally won. I mean, in retrospect, you won that challenge, because Legends is my favorite series of all time. So yeah,
knew it. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, I don't think I've rated. I mean, I think from Revelations is like the lowest. I think all of them in Legends I gave 4.25 or higher. I mean, you guys know I'm pretty stingy with 5 stars, but I think I gave them all 4.25 or 4.5 and higher, I want to say.
But Jesse is also pretty stingy with 5 stars. Neither of you give out 5 stars as often.
I like giving out 5 stars. Well, especially with like a series like that, where even if like, you know, Age of Legend isn't my favorite in that series, but it has the same rating as Age of War, because I'm just like, at this point, I'm so invested. I love these characters. I love this world. I don't even care it's 5 stars, because I'm just so happy being here. So with series, I think I'm a little more like lenient.
More willing to be like,
like, you get a 5 star, because I'm just like happy to be here.
Love this whole thing. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny. I'm gonna guess outside of Age of Swords, Roger, that yours would be Fairlane.
Yeah.
Really?
So Fairlane is kind of a weird... It's a weird...
I really liked it still, even though I spoiled the ending for myself.
The main character,
he didn't like
I could see her really hitting or really missing for people. And so she was kind of in between for me. She's that very overly snarky, overly kind of bombastic female character that we all have seen. Okay. So she's that. I appreciated that there were kind of like Tomb Raider-y elements where we were kind of looking for some lost artifacty type stuff. So like I liked that.
Questing a lot.
But then for this one, I felt like the ending kind of came out of left field. And so I was like, okay, that was a fine ending, but I like usually he like teases me and I see it coming, and part of the fun of it is like the dread of like, please don't do it. And like this time it kind of like, I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite. She kind of annoyed me. And
bummer.
I really liked
hate it. I still gave it 4 stars, but it wasn't 5.
Okay.
So I mean, kind of like on the same par of like,
really good.
I think I gave Age of Swords the same. I think I gave Age of Swords also 4. Because like the ending was amazing, but the beginning.
Right.
4.5. Yeah, because I had a couple issues with the pacing in Fairlane, and like I think for me it's like when we get a little too questy, I'm like, okay, I'm done with. I'm good on the quests. We're good on the quest, but that's kind of like what her whole deal was. And then I had the ending spoiled by myself. I spoiled it for myself on accident.
Well, I love a quest, but usually the quests, at least in like classic fantasy that I love, you get to the awesome artifact and then things really ratchet out of control from there, because now all of a sudden we're on a whole different playing field of power, and that's not really what Fairlane was. It was kind of more of like a look. It really was kind of the one where they're really more examining how things have changed, and like in the text,
in the world,
the characters are like, oh, but that's not what I know. Like, how has that been twisted? Like that's the one where they're starting to like recognize it as themselves.
Yeah. I'm excited for Esarhaddon though, because I think if it's covering what I'm 99% sure it's covering, it should be super like epic.
I'm assuming it's going to be the fall of the rise and fall.
And world changing.
Whatever that means.
Having read Revelations.
Yeah, it should be really important.
Yeah. Like really, really. Because it'll be of a place that we go in Revelations. A secret place that we go to in Revelations. So yeah, it should be really, really cool. I hope. Fingers crossed that it's not a letdown. I doubt it. But all right, favorite characters. Can you guys pick?
But I know you as Malcolm.
Yeah, I love
him. That's a good one.
And you gotta read Rise and Fall, Jesse.
Okay, I really need to read Rise. As soon as I move in to my new house and I have my books, I'm reading Nolan.
I think you'll love Nolan. Nolan feels very much like Legends. Fairlane feels much less connected to them, but it's also like 1,500 years after Legends, whereas Nolan is like a couple hundred years. So a lot of the people from Legends are kind of still around.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to get to it. Malcolm I think is my favorite like overall like continuous character that we have seen peppered in and here and there. Just who's had fingers in lots of places and left impact in lots left an impact in lots of places. You would.
Oh my
God. Okay, for characters like in each series, like that are only in like their series. For Legends, I don't know why she's not like the most exciting or anything, and she annoys me occasionally, but like I just love Persephone.
Oh, I love Persephone.
I love her and how like devoted she is to like doing what she thinks is the best thing for her people and everything. And then it makes me so mad seeing down the line in history
it's
how she's just been erased and like people forget about her. And even in Nolan, like a generation later, it's like she's already like being like, oh, she's whatever. So it's so frustrating because you're like, you don't even know what she did for you. I can't stand it. And I feel like Suri is like a fan favorite.
Yeah.
Like you can't. I feel like if someone said they hated Suri, I'd be like, what's wrong with you? Like actively didn't like her, I'd be like, huh?
Yeah.
Like she doesn't have to be your favorite, but if you actively don't like her, I'm like, something's up. That's odd.
Yeah. Roger, what
I mean, my favorite has to be the Suri Minna combo. Like they are just and the things that he does to poor Suri, it's just like not okay, because she's also like the sweetest, most innocent, just like wants to go hug a tree and follow a friggin' butterfly
Like,
into
literally.
a meadow. And then the things that he does are brutal.
Yeah, Suri gets put through the ringer.
Yeah.
And then for Rise and Fall, probably Malcolm, because that was part of the fun of Rise and Fall for me, was playing like where in Elon is Malcolm? Because you're always like you seem shady, and then you're like, nope, never mind, I was wrong.
Yeah. He's here and there and everywhere.
Since y'all already took Suri, I think, you know, by the end of Legends, I gotta go with Brynn. I gotta give it to her. She really, and it's so interesting, like looking back on that series, what a role she plays at the end. And it's just it's so cool.
Another one that history is erasing.
Yes.
Makes me mad. I act like this is real life, and this is like our real. I'm like, we need to remember our history. No, Joshana, calm down.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where some of the magic, that was the part that you missed. That was like one of the things that I think that he does so well, is that unique take on having the classic fantasy tropes that we're all used to, elves, dwarves, whatever. And then the way that he mixes that with the character work, and then also just the way that he approaches his world building of not necessarily having Easter eggs in the way that a Cosmere Easter egg is, where it's like that character or whatever, or the magic systems are all converging. It's much more like you get to see that history really is written by the victors, and it kind of, I think, incites some of that anger that we have when you start getting outside of your like elementary school history, and you start realizing how much even in classrooms we're like cherry picking and hiding what we don't want to talk about. I think that's part of what makes this series so good.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I'm like, I wish more authors would do what he's doing, where they would just really explore and dig into their worlds, especially ones that I really like. You know? But then I'm also like, well, I would also read anything Michael J. Sullivan does outside of Elon as well. It'd be cool to see him do other stuff, but I really love, exactly what you said, Roger, what he's doing with Elon. I think it's super cool, and I wish there was more of it in the fantasy genre, because it's such a neat idea.
Yeah, I've realized from loving these books and his works that like that is a freaking like positive trigger word for me for like books, like a trope I like, or I don't know, is it a trope or just a thing that an author does, is like gimme fun Easter eggs between like these series, these interconnected series. I love it, and like looking for them. It's so much fun.
It is so fun. It's cool. And I'm surprised you don't like the Cosmere.
Well, I haven't read it. Other than, I mean, I read Mistborn, but I didn't like it really. Like, I mean,
Joanna doesn't love a gigantic book. For one, I don't feel like she loves like a 1,200 page book. She's not like, ooh, yes, give me. No. She's like, oh my god.
I think that also though is like I'm traumatized from Sarah J. Maas giving me 900 page books that are not needed to be on. So now I'm just like,
plus, I feel like Brandon has a simpler writing style than you like. You don't like purple prose, but you don't like he's kind of like the opposite end of purple prose, where it's very straightforward, very accessible. It's all about the cool world building and magic more so than it is about the craft.
I didn't even like the magic.
Joshana, if you would like Tress, because his writing style is super different in Tress. Maybe the humor would bother you. I don't know. His humor is very like hit or miss for people, but his prose in Tress is like the best I've ever seen. It's very like witty, and it
very
breaks
quotable.
the wall with you, and it's like,
you might like it then, because in Mistborn that was like, I didn't like really care about the characters all that much. I was kind of like, I mean, they're cool, I guess. I just wasn't like that invested. Hence, basically DNFing the last 20% of the last book, where like all the things happen, and I was just like, I don't care. Like I just was not invested. And then the way
is weird because the first book is very different from books 2 and 3, and that tends to be a very common complaint. Is people are totally sold on the Dark Lord 1 premise, and then when things change in books 2 and 3, they're always just kind of like, but I liked that.
Yeah, I just, and the writing, like just the magic. It's like a cool premise, But like the over explanation of everything we're doing and the action
He's the
scenes.
worst. That Mistborn is by far the worst for that.
The action
Stormlight
scenes.
doesn't do it to the same degree.
Yeah.
Warburger doesn't do it to the same degree. Elantris
I'll
is like
probably
really
try
different. It's like slower
someday.
political.
I'll try Stormlight someday because of that. Because I know that is a thing, like with the Cosmere of like, oh, all the Easter eggs here and there and everywhere. But it's just like such an undertaking, man.
It is very intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just nervous that I'm not. But you know, I'm an avid DNFer, so if I start Way of Kings, that's the first one, right? And I don't like it, then I'll just stop. So
there you go.
I won't torture myself. Kind of on the same note, though, who would you recommend Michael J. Sullivan to, or who would you like not recommend? Like, what kind of a reader, right?
Well, I would have recommended it to Elle, and then
right? I know. And then she's like, "It's fine, I guess. I don't know if I'll ever continue." I'm like, what? No.
So now I'm so thrown off.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know you.
Especially the way she described the humor. She made it sound like Mistborn era 2, where it's like on the nose frat boy humor, and I was like, where is that in friggin' Legends? Did we read the same book?
But,
I know, and like Suri Minna, I'm like, what? I thought you were gonna love that whole thing and just be like so sold on that. Oh, so funny. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you can hear my cat's automatic feeder going off. It's so loud. Yeah, I would say I would not recommend Michael J. Sullivan to, I don't know, like I was saying earlier, if someone like, if your buzzword or if your like thing you really like about books is like in a fantasy world is like a really cool, unique, intricate world with these like cool whatever and magic system. I mean, I like the magic system in Legends, but like it's by no means like the big focal point, I guess. I mean, it plays a huge part in it, of course. That's kind of part of the whole plot point is like learning this, but it's not like, I don't know, if someone really loves that kind of stuff, I would think that they would probably not end up loving this if that's their focus, you know, if that's like something you go into fantasy books really looking for and like needing, then maybe not, because it is more kind of run-of-the-mill standard fantasy fare, if you will.
Yeah.
Or if you get really hung up on, because I've seen some people get hung up on in Legends specifically, the like innovations and inventions that are happening, because it's like all happening like, oh, we're inventing the wheel and it's very
and then
plot
an arrow and then a whatever.
Yeah. And so if you're someone that like that's gonna annoy you, you're gonna get hung up on that. Probably like don't then, but I think anyone who's a character driven reader who is like just wants to get really invested in characters, I would, and who loves fantasy. I always say too, I feel like it's a good young adult to adult like kind of crossover thing too. If someone has been reading young adult primarily but like wants to get into adult, I'm like, this is a great series for that, because I hear a lot of people say that it feels YA to them, which I'm like, what does it mean? I guess, but I don't know if it's just because it isn't so intricate with the world, and like avid adult fantasy readers might be more used to that. So then reading this feels like, oh, it's not as adult, but I mean, and because he doesn't like have explicit, you know, sex scenes or I don't know. There's violence, but it's not like gory. Yeah, there's no like graphic gory. There's death. There's lots of death and like heart-wrenching things happening, but it's not like, ooh, rated NC-17 or whatever. Yeah. So I feel like that's probably why, but I think it's really good for that kind of crossover thing.
Yeah, and like a beginner
so who would I recommend it
as well.
for? Yeah, I would recommend it for people who like classic adventure fantasy but want the more modern trends of better characters that you care more about.
Yeah.
And then I would not recommend it for people who love that super slow paced kind of political. That is not.
Yeah. Definitely.
At least not from Legends Rise and Fall. I don't know what it does in
it's not
Rhaeria, but I'm doubting that he changes that. If you want the complicated like machination, like that's not really what you're getting here. It's gonna be kind of comfort classic adventure fantasy with fun twists on races, fun twists on magic and how those races come to be, and characters that you get more invested in and like bad things happen. It's not like classic adventure fantasy where you're like, oh, I mean, they're just gonna be resurrected in the next book. Who cares?
Yeah.
And if you like the gods walk among us trope, I think Legends is
Yes.
a good one.
Yes.
It depends on
Definitely.
what you like about the gods among us trope.
I guess.
Because
Yeah.
if you like seeing them actually being active, like crazy,
God.
powerful uber gods,
Yeah.
so you're gonna see them doing like the little chests behind the scenes a little bit, but
Mhm.
they're not gonna feel like gods.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess
So it's,
towards the latter half of the series that plays a
well, I'm
little
more
bit
comparing
more
it to
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
like
true.
Forgotten Realms, where like
Oh,
they are next level involved, and sometimes they're literally
oh.
playing chess against people, and their chess pieces are characters in the story that you then go into the story to see what they're doing. So like it's not like that level.
No, not that at all.
No.
It's more like secretly maneuvering around and like putting people where they need to be through influence and persuasion versus like
And they're more
magic.
humanized. Like you're gonna feel for
Yeah.
the gods because you're gonna
Very.
understand they're not
Yeah.
all powerful uber beings that can do whatever they want. There are circumstances that cause them to do
Yeah.
X, Y, or Z thing.
Yep. And even what you know of the gods isn't always actually correct.
That's right.
Or what you actually know. I'm happy if he is writing a continuation after Revelations, just because, again, without spoiling anything for anyone and for Roger, the way it leaves off, like, we could continue on in like what goes on later. Like there's
Yes.
more story that he could tell there for sure, even though like big huge things are resolved, I feel like. But oh my god, I would just be so happy to get another prequel series. Like prequel of the gods of the world
Oh,
and like
yes.
the truth of like all of that playing out. I have my notebook that I was like making notes and like drawing family trees for the gods to be like, okay, if they're related, and then that makes it like trying to figure it all out.
Yes.
Getting full crazy with it. And I would just love to see all of that. Because I think even where we are now, like, you don't necessarily know the full truth of everything. And there's like still mysteries of like, well, what happened with them? Like the Grenmorians, there's like so much mystery with the Grenmorians and just all the things. And I would be so happy if he did that.
That would be really cool. I wonder if he's planning on doing anything like
Yeah,
that.
I don't know. I'm like, just keep writing
Especially
in the
if he
world of
swapped
Elon.
POVs and gave us from the other side, because we have more information from one side than we do from the other.
Yes. Indeed, we do. It would be very fascinating. But
we're trying so hard to be non-spoiler.
I know,
this
vague and mysterious. If you've read it, you know what we're talking about. And if you haven't read it, hopefully you're intrigued and you'll go put it on your TBR. Yeah, I didn't really have anything else unless you guys had any last comments.
You didn't say who you'd recommend it to, Miss Jessie May.
I agreed with
oh, yeah.
You too. Yeah.
Who would you not recommend it to?
Elle.
Just gonna turn this into Elle sucks because she didn't love Age of Myth.
Yeah, Elle.
Yeah, but you also didn't. Age of Myth isn't your favorite either, so maybe she'll have a trajectory to you if she actually pushed through and read Age of Swords.
If she ever,
the ending of Age of Swords is where you're either sold or not. I feel like.
Yes.
See,
like if that
and Monet read Age of Myth with Elle and also was kind of like, I guess, okay. And I'm like, what? But then she continued on immediately and loved Age of Swords.
Yes.
Good. I was like, then keep going, because if you loved that one, you're guaranteed to like really love the rest.
Yeah, I feel like the ending of Age of Swords. So I feel like even for Elle, we should all band together, and whoever's watching this, go DM her,
bully her,
and tell her to read Age of Swords.
At least, yeah. Quickly, before you forget everything from Age. Yeah, we're gonna bully her.
Yes.
We will. It's funny. She really just one more. Got to give it the good old college try. Just one more book. And then if you're like, no, then fine. Okay, fine, whatever.
Because I get it. Because Age of Myth can feel more generic than the other ones. He's not in his full powerhouse of sucker punching you in the field.
Right.
We're not totally on that level yet. It's really much establishing you in the world and the.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yes. Although I do love the end of Age of Myth. It's so good.
I love Age of Myth.
Oh,
yeah, I immediately was like, I need to read the rest of these.
Yeah.
It wasn't all finished when I read it, but the ones that were. I read them ASAP because I
Yeah.
loved it. All right, well, cool. That's all I had then. And we're about at an hour now, so I guess we can end it. But yeah, let us know if, I mean, I feel like anyone who watches this will have read some Michael J. Sullivan already. So let us know what your favorites are thus far, what you have read, what you plan to read next, and yeah, how you're faring in the world of Elon. And that will be all for us today. So everyone have a lovely day.